In this video, we'll go through the IB Business Management Paper 2, focusing on the structure and content of the paper and top tips to score level 7. In terms of the paper 2, HL students will have an hour and 45 minutes to complete their paper worth a total of 50 marks. For SL students, you have an hour and a half and your paper is worth 40 marks. This is probably the most important paper in business management. It's worth 30% for HL students and 35% for SL students. The structure of this paper is very similar for HL and SL students. Both levels have a section A and a section B, which we'll go into more detail later. The only difference is that HL students will have to answer 3 questions in section A, and SL students will only have 2. You'll be provided a formula sheet on the day of your exam. Now, we strongly recommend you become familiar with the IB's formula sheet before your exam, so you know what formulas you are given and the ones that you can rely on, as well as the ones that you are not, which are the ones that you need to know. If you want to know every formula that you need to know for your BM exam, we've put together a document that includes just that, which is available for free under the exam skills section of our website. Make sure you have a fully charged calculator with you. This is a quantitative paper that will include lots of calculations, and therefore having a calculator will really be handy. You'll be provided with boxes on the actual exam to answer each question. If you're writing your responses in enough depth, you will likely run out of space with these boxes. So we recommend that you ask the invigilator for additional paper even before you begin writing. With that, let's do a deeper dive on the actual structure of the paper 2 so you can understand what types of questions will come up. First up, we have section A. Now in section A, both HL and SL students need to answer all of the questions. As I mentioned earlier, HL students, you get 3 cases, and SL students, you will get 2. Here, expect different case studies for HL and SL students. This is something that is particularly true for the new syllabus, with first exams in 2024. And this is going to be different from what you see in past papers. For HL students, this means you can expect more HL-only quantitative concepts compared to past papers or other questions you might have seen online. This is a change that the IB has intentionally made to test more HL-only content. Some of these topics can include Unit 3.6 on efficiency ratios or Unit 5.6 around productivity and utilization. We've already seen Unit 3.9 budgets be tested and HL-only BMTs like critical path. So just be prepared to see a lot of HL-only content. Section A has a particularly strong quantitative focus. At least about 60% of your questions will fall into the AO4 category. And what this means is that the question will ask you to calculate something like a ratio or construct something like a final account. The qualitative questions will be a mix of AO1 questions, simpler questions that might ask you to state, identify, or define something, and AO2 questions, which are your more standard questions that require you to go into more depth and apply to the case, with a command term like describe or explain. In section A, all units and the BMTs can be assessed. If we do a deeper dive on an individual case study within section A, each case is relatively short and will be worth exactly 10 marks. The first question you'll get is typically a qualitative 2-marker, which will be a simple AO1 question. You'll then get a series of quantitative questions worth a total of 6 marks. You might get 3 calculation questions worth 2 marks each. You might be asked to construct something worth 4 marks and then perform a calculation. Expect this middle part to differ in each of the case studies. Just expect that there'll be a quantitative focus. Finally, the last question is typically a qualitative 2-marker, but this is likely to be AO2, so you have to go into more depth in your response and apply to the case study. Remember that this structure is not a guarantee. The IB could change it up, but this has been the most common structure that the IB has used when creating papers for your syllabus. If we move on to section B, you'll be given 2 case studies here. It is very, very, very important that you only choose to do one. You do not need to answer both and will receive no extra marks for doing so. Section B case studies typically have a greater qualitative rather than quantitative focus. Therefore, you'll get more AO2 style questions and you're guaranteed to get an AO3 question, and that's your 10 marker. Just like section A, all units and the BMTs can be tested. For SL students specifically, expect one of your cases to be related or focused on a social enterprise. HL students, this concept will be the focus for your paper 3, so this is much less likely for you in paper 2. So far, there's been some overlap with the case studies for HL and SL in section B, so there is a potential for less HL-only content to be tested here compared to section A. If we do a deeper dive on the structure of a typical section B case study, Typically, the first question is a simple AO1 2-marker asking you to define, state, identify something. You'll then get a series of 2 markers and 4 markers worth a total of 8 marks. This typically has a more qualitative focus, and the final question will be your 10 marker. Finally, let's go through some top tips that can help you get a level 7. First, use the reading time effectively. We recommend you choose which section B case you'll do in the reading time. When choosing your case study in section B, read the questions first, then read the case study. This does 2 things. First, it forces you to think about your level of comfort with the content tested. Second, when you actually read the case study, you will already know what types of information you need to be looking for to score the application marks. And so you can spend less time trying to think of a good response. Here, your gut feel will probably push you to do one case study over the other. Trust that gut feel and go with it. Try to avoid wasting time by second guessing yourself and changing questions. If you still have time left over after your reading time, you can go back to section A and start thinking of your response to some of the easier questions or how you're going to approach the quantitative questions. Remember, in the reading time, you can't write, highlight, or annotate anything, but you can get started on your planning in your head. This can help give you a little bit of momentum and a little bit of confidence for when you actually start writing. Next, remember the requirements for BM and read your questions carefully. First, make sure to note if the question asks for working out. A lot of the time, BM questions want working out, so show step-by-step calculations to earn the full marks. Even if you make a mistake, you can still earn 1 out of 2 for showing a good method. Next, when constructing final accounts or drawing charts, remember your titles, axes, and units. This is probably the easiest way to lose a mark in business and is very common among students even when they get the calculations right. Do this first before you do any calculation. So make sure you remember your title or label your axis. Do this before you actually do the calculation because it's unlikely you remember to come back and check this later on. Finally, remember the context of what you're calculating. If you are calculating, say, a number like a ratio or something in dollars, remember to round to 2 decimal places, as that is what your examiner expects you to do. Likewise, if you are thinking about other units such as break-even number of cookies sold, remember that you can't produce or sell half a unit, so round to the appropriate whole number. The next step is to be smart about allocation of time on the exam. Always do section A first, as it is very possible to score perfect on your short answer questions, and it's much less likely you score perfect on your 10 marker. If you can, finish all your section A questions first before moving to section B. However, remember not to spend too long on any one question. If you get stuck, skip the question and come back. Answer as much of the paper as possible to give yourself a chance to score as many marks as possible. Finally, we strongly recommend that you leave a few minutes at the end to check your responses, at least for the quantitative questions. In the exam, it's very easy to make a careless mistake. And especially since your paper 2 has an increased quantitative focus, it's important you go back and check your calculations, even if quickly, to make sure you haven't lost marks due to simple mistakes or missing something like a unit. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, make sure you do a lot of practice. The biggest mistake students make with business is that they spend too much time reviewing the content and not enough time doing practice case studies to actually prepare them for the exam. This is the reason why there's so many predicted level 7s in BM who know their content really well, but only about 9% of BM students score level 7. Do practice case studies, do full-length past papers to get used to what is expected of you on the exam and to help you build up your application skills. If you're looking for more resources to do this, you can take advantage of the free resources on our website, diplomaly.org, which is linked in the description. To practice case studies just like you would see on your final paper 2 in terms of section A and section B, head over to the case study section of our website and navigate to the comprehensive case studies, which will give you these section A and section B case studies just like you'd see them on the final exam. To take this a step further, you can practice using a full-length mock exam to help simulate assessment conditions. For each practice that you do, make sure you check your responses, not just against the mark scheme, but the full-length exemplar response we have provided for you, which represents the depth you would need to go to in the actual exam if you're aiming to score a 7. If you have forgotten or haven't learned how to construct your final accounts, calculate ratios, or write a 10 marker, don't worry, we've got you covered. Head over to the skills section of our website where our quantitative skills videos will walk you through every type of quantitative question you might see on your exam and how to solve them at various levels of difficulty. At the same time, the response structures video will walk you through how to answer every type of qualitative question in BM, including 2 markers, 4 markers, and 10 markers. Thank you for watching our video on the Paper 2. If you're looking for additional help with the Paper 2 or any other parts of the BM course, feel free to reach out to us via email or WhatsApp. You can also check out our videos on preparing for the Paper 1, Paper 3, and content summaries for each of our units in the BM course, which are on our YouTube channel. Feel free to check out the resources on diplomaly.org, and if you have any questions or would like to see us cover any types of BM content, please let us know in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching, and best of luck with your exam prep.